What's up, guys? So this isn't a bad video. This isn't like no hate towards the person that asked the question. I love that creator. He's really cool. The reason I decided to make a video is because sometimes it's just very hard to like respond to comments with the limited amount of characters that TikTok gives you in the comment section, and there's like a lot to really say about this. And maybe this response might not even be like a good response, but I just want to put my thoughts out there and see what people have to say about it. Here's the issue with like Christianity in regards to like why would the many different denominations be an evidence against Christianity or an issue for it in general? The thing is that you have one God, and this God is trying to give his message to people via the Bible. And this message is supposed to talk about like the history of Christianity and everything that happened and all the actions taken by the Abrahamic God and all the events that led up to Jesus coming, so forth and so on, stories about different peoples, different nations, so forth and so on. First off, it doesn't make sense to me why a all-powerful God would want to deliver his message via human beings who he knows that are flawed, right? They're going to make mistakes. They're going to misinterpret things. They're susceptible to corruption. You could look at it in another light and see it as just human beings trying to deceive people by placing God behind their agenda in this book that they wrote in order to like push their agenda with an unverifiable, source outside of themselves, the God that we can't see, talk to, and only certain people are able to interact with. Certain apostles, saints, whatever you want to call it. When we look at this Bible, the things that are supposed to be taken literally are not outlined, and the things that are supposed to be taken as a metaphor or an allegory, they're not outlined or specified. And this just leads to like a lot of confusion. You would think that a God that's trying to like give us his message and is trying to get as many people into heaven as possible, and he loves his children and he wants everyone to come to him, would make his message a little bit more straightforward and less complicated, to the point where the only people who are really going to understand the message are the scholars at the top tippity top of everybody who is reading this Bible in regards to like intelligence level. Essentially, the complexity of the Bible just seems like a barricade that God has put in the way of us chasing after him. And you have people who are biblical literalists, which is a terrible way to go about studying the Bible. The different denominations are a result of people reading the same book and interpreting it in different ways. One example is how the Eastern Orthodox Church is, separate from the Catholic Church because of like how they interpret scripture and their so-called church history that just tends to differentiate. The Eastern Orthodox, I don't know much about them, but they say that, their church fathers and, their apostolic succession happened that way, right? And the Catholics are saying that they have church fathers and they have apostolic succession that's happening that way. And then they're, interpreting the Bible in different ways and having disagreements about what is said in scripture. And if it was straightforward, we wouldn't have these disagreements. We would all interpret it the same way. I don't know why this is occurring. Another result of God trusting in human beings to deliver his message, right? This God that's supposed to be all-powerful and all-knowing, he trusted human beings, and he's supposed to know better. And this resulted in the Roman Catholics during the Protestant Reformation charging people money so that, church officials could pray for their dead loved ones so that they'll get into heaven. And they basically scammed people in Europe for a good period of time. God should have known better that this was going to happen, and why would you trust human beings? This is going to happen. They're a flawed creation. This led to the creation of so many different denominations, so many different interpretations of the Bible, and people just thinking like we're going to do it our own way, and we're going to look at the Bible and come up with our own denomination, start our own way of thinking. different translations have been made, different, denominations have been made. All of this because God decided human beings would be the perfect vessel for delivering his message, instead of maybe talking to each one of us personally. And he has the power to do that. Not only that, sensationalism is a problem. And sensationalism is something that boils my blood. I literally hate sensationalism with all my life. There are Christians that literally tell you, if you just get on your knees and pray to God, God will speak to you and you'll feel like God is telling you the truth, or you're in the presence of God. Here's the problem with that. You can find a Christian in every single denomination that is telling you that their denomination is right because they felt the presence of God and God was communicating with them strongly. And this is a problem because these denominations don't agree with each other. It's just super contradicting. How do we know who's telling the truth? Everybody's having sensationalist feelings from God and saying that God is talking to them. One thing that the Catholics like to do is they tell people to pray the rosary, where they basically repeat the same Hail Mary and Our Father and Glory Be prayers to themselves over and over and over and over again in order to get closer to God. Back when I was in college, I sort of came to this thought, if somebody was to repeat to themselves or say the same prayer over and over and over again, couldn't that be a form of brainwashing, and you could convince yourself to believe in God by reaffirming the same prayers and thinking about our reality, that is God exists and I'm praying to him, and you keep you could trick yourself into believing that God exists, and this is not really the best way to get to truth. I don't know, maybe the rosary could be a type of brainwashing, saying the same prayer over and over and over again, and maybe you could trick your brain. You get what I'm saying. Not only do the denominations not agree with each other, and there are plenty of people in different denominations who have this feeling that God is in their presence. If you look all over the world, you have people from different religions that are saying they can feel their God's presence. The Greeks talk to the Greek gods all the time. The Egyptians see the Egyptian gods in visions all the time. This is my problem with anecdotes as well. Every single person on the face of the earth has an anecdote. This leads me to believe maybe God is speaking to them, or maybe on the off chance they're just convincing themselves of a false reality, and because of these messages that they're feeding their subconscious, maybe via praying the rosary and all sorts of different prayers and practices that they might do, this is somehow pushing them, or this is somehow the cause of these visions that they're having, and these this sensationalist feeling that God is in their presence that they're having. Everything I've said in this video, why is this a problem for Christianity? There's just not a clear there's not a clear demonstration that God exists in regards to sensationalism. The Bible that God has placed for us. A lot of the ways that God is acting is illogical, doesn't make sense. And so one could even sort of see how man could have made all of this, right? And put God behind it to affirm this and scare people. Hell, the Bible doesn't even talk about hell. That's a thing. I've had a conversation with somebody in the past about this before, but the Catholics were very responsible for the imagery that was hell. The Bible doesn't really describe hell except for the mention of a city that was very hot. I have that written down somewhere. I would have to go get it. But yeah, all of these problems, wouldn't they just kind of hint at the idea that maybe this is man-made? And even with our best researchers and, Bible scholars trying to interpret the Bible, there's no way of verifying whether they interpreted it the right way. God is not coming down here and saying, this person got it right. We're doing all this work to understand the Bible, and in the end, it's just going to be humans saying, this is what it is. There's no way to verify whether you actually have the right information. All of these issues are kind of problematic. Sorry for the long video. But give me your thoughts, and maybe this is bad reasoning on my part, but what do you guys think?